Hi folks, this is Karim Rao from IT Visualizer channel. We will continue our lab, the Red Arrow lab. This is the video number 84. I've been discussing in the previous video the following. We have begin talking about a topic which is the App Locker. App Locker, it is a Microsoft feature that is implemented through the group policy. Its main objective is to control the applications that the user can run on his workstation or on the server. So this is a very important feature to have a centralized software monitoring, so you can and monitoring and control, of course, so you can control through the App Locker what applications the user can run, and you can monitor it also from the Windows event log, so you can know which applications are accessed, which applications are blocked, so you can centralize your software access and monitoring. Okay, and another feature of App Locker is to prevent ransomware, because we all know that ransomware infects a machine because of the ignorance of the user. The user, for example, open a malicious link in his email, sent to him on his email, and then the malware will begin running on his PC and infect his PC. So the App Locker can help you to prevent this kind of events by having something called the whitelist. The application or the App Locker have a whitelist with all of the programs that are authorized or that are approved by the IT, so the user can run. And we all know that the ransomware is a script or is a program, so of course these ransom or these scripts are not included in the application whitelist used by the App Locker. So this helps you to prevent running any software either than or nor that are included in the application whitelist used by the App Locker. So we have a very good documentation to implement this App Locker group policy. This documentation is written by the National Security Agency and the Central Security Service of the United States. So this is a very good documentation to implement the App Locker. It's very detailed, it's very written in a very simple English language you can all understand, not in technical or in some difficult technical terms. They are all very simple to understand, and it's also not only documentation, it includes some files that you can import, okay, and use with the App Locker. So we will, in this video, will begin configuring App Locker. This App Locker group policy needs some files. These files are also included with the documentation provided by the National Security Agency and the Central Security Service of the United States. So we'll see how we can use this documentation. We have discussed in the previous video an introduction. The PDF was talking about some terms about the App Locker, why it is used, why it is very important, and some methods on how the App Locker works. Okay, in this video we'll continue working with the App Locker documentation, and we'll begin implementing the App Locker and see how it will work in practical terms. So let's see how we can do this. We have stopped the last time at deploying App Locker. So the App Locker is deployed in four rules, or in four ways: path rules, file hash rules, publisher rules, packed application rules. Okay, so the path rule, this is the first one. Actually these are the App Locker controls not only executable files, but it also controls the scripts and the .msi files and DLL and package apps. These package apps, this is the Windows App Store, okay, or Windows application of the Windows App Store, or this is the applications introduced in the Windows App Store or Windows Store. Anyway, so let's begin with the first rule. The path rule allows the restriction of program execution based on where the program is located. So for example, I need to restrict only the use of programs that are in the C program files folder. Okay, so this is one, or how we can apply the App Locker using the path rules. Administrators can create rules for specific file or entire directory tree. Okay. He's saying that one potential difficulty with this rule is that users may have authorized application installed in diverse locations. So here he had the recommendation that all of your programs that you need the user to run should be installed in one place, so you can only make one path rules. But if you do multiple path rules, this will be a headache, okay, because you will manage all of these locations. Okay, so he says this is it is time consuming to keep track or migrate all of your legitimate program files. So the solution is to migrate all your legitimate program folders in one folder. Okay, so this is the first rule, the path rule. So you can apply the app locker using the path rule, and then we will talk about the second method, which is the hash or file hash rule. But let's first read more. And he's saying that also one thing to put in mind, that the folder that contains the programs that you will allow the app locker or the app locker will authorize the users to run them, these folders the user should have an access control or permissions on it only to read, not to modify or to change. So for example, if you have the users, for example, permission on the C program files to delete the folder, then the app locker will not be in effect, because they can delete the whole folder, or they can delete the folder that contains the program. So you should take care that the C program files user should only have read permission on it. Okay, and the app locker path rule will add more layer of security to run the programs only in this folder. Okay, so he say that you should have access control to these locations to ensure regular users are restricted from adding or modifying the files in those locations. This is a very logical step to do. Okay, and actually by default I think C program files have authenticated users, or users to have only read permission, or regular users to have only read permission on it. So this is first, or this is the number one, how we can apply path rules. Okay, so you should have all of your programs installed in one location, or they are included in one folder. Okay, by default most of the programs in Windows are installed in the folder called program files under the C partition. Okay, this is one thing. Okay, but some programs doesn't have this rule, but you can put all of them in one folder. This is good for ease of managing. Okay, so this is the one, this is the path rule. Then the another rule is called file hash rules. Use a cryptic hash to uniquely identify specific executable file. So this is something like a stamp, or like something to put on your file, so you can make it unique and you can identify it. So we will not identify, or the app locker will not allow programs in a certain folder to run, but he will allow certain programs to run based on their file hash, or based on their identity, and this identity is a very unique number. So this is what we call file hash rule. This rule is most useful for unassigned files that are not in whitelisted locations identified by the path rule, that are needed for an application to run properly. So he can, or he's saying that you can use the file hash rule side by side with the path rule. So if, for example, if all of your programs are not installed in one location, you can use one rule on a path rule, and then you can use another rule with the file hash rule. Anyway, I think the most commonly used one is the path rule. Anyway, please note, for this rule type, the rule must be modified whenever the program is updated. So this is another disadvantage of using file hash. What we mean, for example, if a program is updated, for example, if I have an update for example, let's have a complete situation. Now you have, for example, make a file hash rule for the Office, or the the Microsoft Office suite. Okay, so they are allowed or authorized by the app locker by their file hash, and there is an update that is listed, or there is an update for the Office package. After the updating or after the installation of the update for the Office package, the file rule or the file hash will be changed. Okay, so after changing it, the file hash rule will not work. So the file hash rule works only on on instant rules. What I mean, for example, you have your Office package, okay, you have a file hash to them, okay, and this file hash is created, or there is a rule created for this file hash in the App Locker. Okay, if there is any change to the Microsoft Office package by updates, the file hash will change, and then you need to update your file hash rule in the App Locker. So this is very headache because there is a lot of updates for a lot of applications. He's saying this for this rule, the rule must be modified whenever the program is updated, because the hash changes with any change to the file contents. Therefore, due to an ongoing management burden of keeping the hash rule updated, this rule is only recommended for use in certain situations. So, as I told you before, the most commonly used one, it is the path rules. We mostly use the path rules, and we will see that this documentation will use the path rule. So, this is the second rule, or the second way we can control accessing or running programs based on their file hash, or based on the file hash. Okay, and then the second most commonly used rule, it is the publisher rule. The publisher rule here depends upon the publisher. For example, I say to the App Locker, please, any program created by Microsoft, then you should allow it. Every program created by Apple, you should let it run. Here is saying that the publisher rules allow for greater flexibility, but can only be used to identify software files that are digitally signed. So he depends upon that all of the Microsoft products and the Apple products or famous company products all are digitally signed, or all are uniquely identified by a digital signature. So, and this signature cannot be manipulated with and cannot be copied, and the App Locker knows these signatures, so he can identify them easily. So most recent applications have digitally signed signatures that can be used for publisher rules, but unfortunately many others still do not. So most of the publishers or company or software developer companies have digital signature for their products, but mostly or some doesn't have. So in order for the publisher rule to effectively allow execution of a program, all of the program's executable files must be digitally signed for them all to be allowed to run and function properly. So I think nowadays, I think this is an old documentation, but nowadays I think most of the developers of programs or applications does run or does have a digital signature for their products. Anyway, as I have told you before, this is the second most commonly used App Locker rule. I prefer to use the path rule. This is the most commonly used one and the most easiest one to implement. Okay, he's saying here, let's say here, note that the file version it may not be the same. Publish can identify all files that can be further restricted. Anyway, users cannot easily circumvent this rule by just renaming the file, since App Locker gets this information from the digital signature of the executable. So for example, someone can rename a file to appear like to be an Office, or executable file to be, for example, its name like the Office name, but this will not deceive the App Locker because you need to see this, the digital signature for this file. Okay, anyway, so he's saying that the primary concern with this rule is that there are many applications that are not digitally signed. So this is a disadvantage for the publisher rule and the file hash rule. We can see here that he didn't say any disadvantage for using a path rule. So that means internally, or he is saying that we should go with the path rule. Anyway, so he is discussing all of the rules, and I think here the most suitable one to use it is the path rule. This is the one that we will begin working with. So we have discussed all of the rules. Then the last one is the package app rule. These allows a single app locker rule to control whether the entire app, also known as Windows app, is allowed to run. So this allows all of the Windows applications to run, especially the Windows Store application. Okay, they are all grouped in one package. Okay, this rule permits all files within an app package to share the same identity and be controlled by the app locker together. Okay, Windows App Locker only supports package apps that are signed by the software publisher. So the same, it allows Windows Store apps to run if they have their software digitally signed. This is begins with Windows 8 because the beginning of use of Windows Store apps was in Windows 8. Since all package apps can be installed by a standard user, it is recommended to create specific policies to restrict app or package apps to only the authorized ones. Okay, so he's saying here also that one of the things that the Windows Store apps can be installed easily by standard users. So I prefer not to use Windows Store apps at all, or not to use Windows Store apps in a specific. Use other programs or alternatives for Windows Store apps if you can. Okay, so now here is saying there are several ways to configure AppLocker depending on whether you want to use local or group policies. So you can configure AppLocker if you are in a work group to configure local group policies on every machine, or if you are in a domain to use the Active Directory group policy. So you can use this or use this. You can use the Group Policy Management Console or local group policy editor if you are, or local security policy editor if you are locally on a machine. So the steps will walk you through how we can do this. First of all, the first thing, we need to go and make group policy, and then we need to open this path: computer configuration, policies, Windows settings, security setting, application control policies, then App Locker. So here how we can go to the App Locker section in the group policy. We have already created in the previous video, or we were working with a group policy. It's called Windows 10 hardening. Inside it we will go to the App Locker section. So let's see how we can do this. We go to the App Locker control. After that I will create a separate group policy for it. I will not use any group policy. I will make a separate group policy for the App Locker. Here we can see that the App Locker has different sections. Okay, there is a group policy, or there is App Locker to block or to allow executable files, to allow scripts, to allow DLL files, to allow app lockers. Prior to configuring app locker policies, there should be a design and plan to process to understand the potential effects the app locker rules will have on your system. So here he prefers that you test these app locker rules before widely using it in your domain. So you can do this in two ways. You can choose a sample or computer samples or test computers within your environment. For example, from every department you can choose a PC to be your test subject, and then group them in one Active Directory group object, and then apply the group policy to them. Or you can apply the App Locker rules in an audit mode. Okay, let's talk about this, but wait for a moment, guys. So let's continue, guys. Or we can use the App Locker rules in the audit mode. Okay, so the audit mode means that the rules will be not enforced, but the activity of the rules will be logged. What we mean by this, for example, if you make a rule in the App Locker, for example, to allow, for example, the Microsoft Edge to work. So if there is a user, or there is this browser on a machine of the user and he opens, okay, the app locker will only write in the Windows log that the user had used the Microsoft Edge and my rules or my application whitelist allows this application to run. Let's take an opposite one. For example, if you block the Chrome browser to run and the user tried to run, or you have created an Applocker rule to block the Chrome from being used, okay, and the user tried to open the Chrome, okay, the Chrome will not be blocked, it will run, but in the Windows event log, okay, a log will be written that the user tried to open the Chrome and the Applocker, there is a rule in the Applocker to block this program from running, but it is run, but it is not blocked, but we have logged this event in our Windows event log. So you can use the audit only mode, okay, or you can test the rules on the test subjects, okay. So he's saying here there are 3 enforcement modes included in the following: not configured, enforced rules, audit only. The not configured mode, the default setting, it's not configured and it's not enforced. The enforced rules is when rules are applied to enforce the application whitelist policy defined by the rule collection. Audit only mode does not enforce the rules but simulates applying the rules. It logs which files would be blocked by the proposed policy, okay. So this is what we are talking about. It simulates applying the rules. It doesn't block, but it logs the events, okay. So he's saying here Applocker can be circumvented in several ways, or it can be overcome. Let's say circumvented here, it means it can be overcome in certain ways. Let's see how we can overcome this Applocker rules. So here is saying that it is recommended to limit or remove administrator privileges from users so unauthorized administrators does not have the ability to make unplanned changes to Applocker policies or disable required app ID service, okay. So he's saying that do not give any user administrative privileges, because he can go and change the Applocker group policy, or he can stop the app ID service, which is a very important service for the Applocker group policy to work. If this service is not working, the Applocker rule will not work. So he's saying that the only way to overcome this Applocker is to give a user administrative privileges, and through these administrative privileges he can change the Applocker policy or disable a service called App ID, which is very important for the Applocker group policy to work. Another way to circumvent the intended application is to add or modify the files that the Applocker allows to be executed. This is by going to the folder that contains the program and manipulate the files within the folder of the program. And this also works because the user have permissions on the folder that contains the program. This can be controlled using the permissions. He's saying here also we need to an essential to use a host prevention system, okay, to have a host prevention system. It is essential that executable files and containing directories identified by the Applocker rules be protected from user modification by file system controls, by having permissions or Windows permissions, or other means by host intrusion prevention system. So you can control the program that contains the executable files. So you can control the using of the program through the folder that contains the program files, executable files, and containing directories by the permissions or by host prevention system, okay. So this is one thing. Starting the application identity service. This is a very important service. In short, it's called App ID service. Prior to using the Applocker, the application identity service must be started on each computer in order to enforce an Applocker policy. Applocker employs this user mode service to aid the kernel mode Applocker implementation. Anyway, in short, this service should be running on every computer, okay. This service can be configured to start automatically by administrator using group policy. So we will initialize this service on all of the computers in our domain through a group policy by going to security setting, system services, and then application identity, and then tell him to automatically start this service, okay. So this is one thing to do before going further in the configuring of the Applocker group policy. Okay, but before that, I think now what I have done here, I realize that I need to make a separate group policy. Anyway, just wait for a moment. Enabling DLL protection is not enabled by default. It is recommended that Applocker application whitelist policy be configured for libraries as well, since they are used to run code and can be easily bypass the intended application whitelist policies. Okay, so let's see what is a DLL. Okay, I just need to have a small thing. What is DLL files? So, dynamic link library is a Microsoft implementation, just wait for a moment, implementation of the shared library concept in Microsoft Windows and OS operating systems. No, this is not a good one. It's a good explanation. A collection of small programs that larger programs can load when needed to complete specific tasks. This is very short. They are small programs that larger programs can load when needed to complete specific tasks. So this is also considered to be programs. So this also should be controlled by the Applocker. This is in very short terms. So we need to control it. Okay, saying that this is not enabled by default in the Applocker, so we need to enable it. Okay, it is recommended that Applocker application whitelist policy be configured for libraries as well. Okay, since they are used to run code and can be used to easily bypass the intended application whitelist policy. Importing the starter anyway. So here we have some rules. So when we open the Applocker group policy, we need to create a rule. Here the National Security Agency have give us some ready-made rules to be imported in the Applocker group policy, and this is also included with the zip file that we have downloaded from the Department of Defense or the of the United States. So we will see that later, that we can import rules in the Applocker policy, ready-made rules into the Applocker group policy. So he's saying the first thing you need to do is to audit, or to put your Applocker rules in the audit mode. Auditing is the first major step that you will take to implement application whitelisting, to identify the programs that need to run and put them in a list and let the Applocker use it. This will allow you to generate logs that will be useful in tailoring the policy for your organization. So you will put an application whitelist and you make an application whitelist and make the Applocker group policy be used in audit mode, so you can monitor and see how these rules will work in real-time situations. So for example, sometimes you need to modify it because there is some applications that you needed to run not included in the application whitelist, or you need to block some programs, so you need to test and see this. So we can put it in the audit mode. He will say that in the auditing phase, you will create an application whitelist, test the group, create a test policy, import the policy, verify that the logging is enabled, apply the policy, and update the test clients with the new test policy. So what we will do here we will create an Active Directory work group. We will put on it some test computers, and then we will create a test Applocker policy. Okay, this test Applocker policy will be imported, so we will import it from the ready-made file the National Security Agency give us, and then we will make sure that the group policy enables logging on the machine, so we can see the group policy, what it will do in the Windows event log, and then see the results. Okay, prior to enforcing Applocker rules, auditing should be used, so we will put the Applocker rule in audit mode. Should be used to verify that Applocker policy will function as expected and not adversely affect authorized programs. Take into consideration that we will not put Applocker rules for executable files only. We will put it for scripts, and we will put it for DLL. So this should be very carefully tested. Okay, so it is useful for testing new rules prior to rule deployment. as well helping to determine whether any additional rules are necessary. So you can change the rules. Some applications may need to be added, some applications may need to be removed from the application whitelist. So once it is determined the rules are behaving correctly, then the policy should be changed to enforce, from audit to enforce. Each rule collection, executable, installer, script, and DLL can be configured separately for auditing and enforcement. So as we see, there is sections in the Applocker group policy: section for the executable, section for the scripts, section for the installer, and section for the DLL. So he's saying here, he's making an example here. If you will not use the audit step, as we said before, we can make it on test subjects. Create an OU, put in it some in this OU you can put some computer subjects and apply a group policy to this OU, or you can make a group, and this group put some computers and apply this, or apply the Applocker group policy to them. So he's saying here that you can test small group of computers before auditing the entire domain or OU. Auditing a small sample of computers first should keep the event log server from being overwhelmed by a large amount of logs. So he's saying also that the audit step, if you need to audit the Applocker group policy on all of the machines in your domain, this will make a lot of logs in the computers. So this can be also problematic. So even if you put your Applocker rule in the audit mode, this will create a lot of logs or Windows event logs on the machines. So this can be headache. So the best thing to do from his point of view, and he have done this in the in this documentation, is to create or to test it, not to audit, to test it on a test subjects or small computers or small number of computers. So we will create a group, Active Directory group, and then put a couple of computers in it from each department, a test subject, and then apply the Applocker policy to it. So, and actually also I will make a separate group policy. I will not use the Windows 10 hardening group policy. I will create a separate group policy, and then I will create an Active Directory group, put some test computer subjects in it, and then apply this group policy to this computer Active Directory group. So let's see how we can do this. So we are going further, or one by one. So he's saying this will be overwhelmed, or the collection server from being overwhelmed by a large amount of logs. So this can be problematic because a lot of logs will be collected. Okay, so what we will do, I will create a new group policy, and through it I will apply the Applocker. I will not use an existing group policy. I will create a new group policy and then begin to put some computers, or create a group and put some computers in it. So this is what we will do. We'll now go and create an Active Directory group. This group will group some computers, not users, okay? And we will apply a group policy, a new group policy to them, which is the Applocker new group policy. So let's see how we can do this. So I will go and create an Active Directory group. So what we will do now, we need to first of all go and create an Active Directory group. So what I'm doing here, I'm going to my tier 0. I think I will begin, yes, this is tier 0 level in the Active Directory, and then I will create a group. I will create a new group, and this group will be named, no, it's a group, it will be test, okay, underscore app locker, okay, and then computers, okay, and then I tell him okay, and then I'll begin adding some computers to this group, and then I will create a new group policy and configure the Applocker through it and apply it to this group of computers. Group of computers to test, okay, to test the Applocker, okay, application locker, and then apply and okay, and then begin adding some computers. I will go from every army or from every tier, I will take a computer and put it in this group, okay. This is very simple to do. You can not use a group, you can use an OU, or you can create an OU and apply it to this OU, but I prefer a group because there is a lot of computers and different OUs, so it is better to group them by a group, okay, or Active Directory group. So here, for example, I will take from every army a computer and put it in this group to test my Applocker group policy. So here, this is the ally army. I will go and put one computer which is, I think, tank 10. This is a computer in the ally army. So right click and tell him add to a group and add it to my newly created group, and we'll go to the Japanese army and do the same, and go to the Russian army and do the same. So from every army I have a computer to test my Applocker group policy. So tell him test not test, yes, test Applocker, and then it was added to the group, and then we will begin we'll begin configuring, or I will add also another computer from the Empire of the Sun or the Japanese army. I will add also another computer which is ship 290 or 290. I will add it to a group, okay. Test and then Applocker, and then we will go to the Russian army and add a computer named Airplane 54, and this will be the last one, okay. And then we'll create a new group policy and apply it to them. This new group policy contains the new Applocker policy, okay. So we'll go to the Russian army, then we will go to the I think the air base, yes, and then Airplane 54, and this will be added to the group, and then we will create a new group policy and apply the Applocker through it. So now we have added 3 computers to our test Applocker group. Now we need to go and create a new group policy. When we open the test Applocker computers and see the members, we will see that we have our 3 computers added successfully. So now we need to go, but first of all I will disable this group policy, or I will just undo what I have done in this existing group policy, because I need to create a new group policy and apply the Applocker policy through it. So what I will do now, I need to go and create a new group policy. Here I will go and create a new group policy, right click and new, and tell him Applocker policy Applocker GPO, okay, and tell him okay. And then need to edit it, and then begin working with the new Applocker group policy. We'll go to the section of Windows setting, and then we will go to the application security setting, and then go to the application control policies. Before that we need to open the identity service to apply it, because we have done this before, and tell him to apply this service or to run this service automatically on all computers and servers, okay. And then we need to begin working, or we need to apply this group policy. Remember that this group policy is not yet attached to be applied to a certain object, not an OU or not a group. So we need first to get this Applocker policy, okay, and tell him in the section of security filtering we need to apply it to our Applocker test group, okay. So I need to remove it. First of all, we need to apply it on the level of the domain, of the whole domain. So it will be applied to the whole domain, but not all of them, to a certain group in this domain. This group, it will be the test Applocker group. And remember, if you remove authenticated users, you need to go to delegation and give domain computers read permission on this group policy. If you will not give domain computers read permission on this group policy will not be added. This should be done if you remove the authenticated users group policy from the security filtering section. This is something you should do it. Microsoft tells us to do this. Now what we need to do here, there is something called Applocker Policy XML. This can be imported to set up the initial recommendation location based Applocker. So the Department of Defense, sorry, not the Department of Defense, the the National Security Agency give us a file. This file we will import it in the Applocker group policy section, and this will give us a couple of rules. He's giving us a couple of rules to be applied. These are path rules. So he's saying to us, or he's allowing us some locations to run to run the programs in it. Okay, saying that configure the recommended location based application starting rules. Okay, he was saying here if you need to modify it, you can modify it. So we'll see what the National Security Agency think of the paths in your, or the path of the programs in your Windows that they should let you run. Let's see. We will import this group policy and see. So we'll import this group policy and see how it is configured. We will see and test it one by one. Let's see. First of all, we will import a group policy. So let's see. And he's saying here also some rules. Let me get path, or let turn back. Here is saying that in these rules, he will restrict administrator accounts from browsing web or reading mails by denying them from easily running web browsers and email applications. So here in the starter policy, he will allow certain programs to be run by standard users, and through it he will block the administrator or the local administrator's accounts or the domain admin accounts to browse the web and read the mails, because this will allow, or this will let these accounts to be easily hackable. Okay, so these accounts should not face the internet, the domain admin account or the local administrator account. We will see the rules one by one. So let's first go and import the rule, and then we will begin discovering the rule one by one. Okay, so let's see now. Let's continue working. Let's import. We have this policy. So just a moment, guys. So what we will do, we need to go and tell him edit the group policy, and then we need to import. I will let you show you all how we can import a group policy, import Applocker rule inside the Applocker policy. So we'll go to the application policies. Okay, and then application control policy, and then we tell him Applocker, and then right click and tell him to import. Okay, policy. This policy is already made. Okay, so it's given us by the National Security Agency. So we'll go to the Applocker guidance master, then the Applocker, okay, Windows 10 Applocker starter.xml. Now there is a lot of rules will be imported. Okay, all of them. So we'll import all of them. These rules include executable rules, scripts rules, and a lot of rules. Okay, this is very simple. And this, by this we have finished. Okay, importing the rules. Okay, first of all, we need to see what are the mode these rules will be. It will be in audit mode, so it will not be enforced. So we need to audit it. If you need to audit the rules before applying them, so if you audit them and then they are okay, you can change them from audit to enforce. Anyway, so we will begin working with them. Let's see first of all the executable rules. So this starter, or this imported rule, there is a lot of rules. It will import executable rules, script rules, and a lot of rules. So here we see, for example, that the National Security Agency allows C program files folder. The user should run any programs in it, and also executables in the folder WinDir, C WinDir folder. But not all of the programs in the WinDir folder. There is some folders that contains some programs the users should not run, exception to the preceding rule. For example, a folder named caret2, the dump or DMP, FX stamp, spooler drivers, printers. So the user should not play or run rules or the printers. Anyways, there's some locations that are excluded for the user to run. Some programs in some locations the user should not be able to run. Okay, this is by the Department of Defense. What are these folders, and what are these why they are important that the user should not run any programs within them? You can Google them and see what are the important of these folders. Okay, anyway, so we will see that this rule will be applied also to executable to scripts and to MSI files and package rules. All will be doing the same. Okay, so let's continue and see. So saying everyone allow execution of programs in C program files and allow programs in C WinDir folder or Windows directory, but exception to this rule are the upcoming locations. Okay, tasks. So I think here task, if the user was able to run the programs in the task folder, that means that he can create Windows task scheduler or Windows task in the task scheduler. So this also is not a good thing to do. The normal user should not have this for him. Temp file means that the user can play with some programs through the temp file. Anyway, temp folder. Okay, anyway, and at the end we see a little bit of a rule saying that allow administrators to execute all files. This is the built-in administrators, and domain admin administrators have full access and control and run on all of the above locations. Okay, so this is one rule. This is the executable rules imported, and we will see that there is the same concerning the scripts. We will see the other installer rules. We will say that here allow everyone to run all Windows installer files located in C Windows directory or C Windows installer. All users can do this, and allow administrator to run all installer files in all of the partition C. So this is only here to run MSI files in the C Windows installer folder. Okay, only this. But for the administrators, they can run any MSI files in any location in the Windows, in the C partition that contains the Windows. Okay, and then we will go to the script rules. All of these are already imported. In the script rules, we'll see that allow everyone to run all scripts located in program files folder. Okay, this will be done, and allow everyone to run scripts in this folder unless the before folders, and then administrators can run all scripts. The same for the DLL, they are all the same. Allow administrators to execute all DLLs path. Allow everyone to execute DLL located in program files folder. Okay, allow DLLs in C Windows directory unless the same locations. So we can see that these locations are repeated in the DLL rules, in the script rules, in the executable file rules. Okay, so these are all repeated. Okay, so these are ready-made rules. We don't need to configure them. These are configured by importing the rule. Anyway, you need to test all of these. Note that there are a numerous exception list as a part of the starter rules that we have imported to deny users the ability to execute files from user writable subdirectories of whitelisted directory. For example, C WinDir, this is C Windows, is whitelisted to allow users to execute files that reside there, but C Windows temp is listed as an exception in order to prevent users from executing the files that reside there, because the default file system access control allow only authenticated users to add new files to that subdirectory. So he's saying that the access control or the permissions on the C Windows temp allow the normal users to add files to this location. Okay, he's saying allow the authenticator to add new files to this location. So here he is using the Applocker to prevent adding new files to this temp folder. I don't know if this will do any problems, okay, but you need to test it. He's saying that he's using the Applocker to prevent users from adding new files to the C Windows temp folder because the default permissions on the temp folder is to let authenticated users add new files to the temp folder. Authenticated users means every user that have an account on the machine, and he can successfully log in on the machine with his username and password. Okay, if you do not want to import starter rules, you can do them manually, okay, or do as they are listed in the table, okay, but we can work with it. So he's explaining why there is some locations that are not allowed. Okay, we can Google these folders and see why they are they are so important to block, but we need to, as we said before, we need to test these rules before applying it. Configure the auditing group to forward Applocker events to a collection server. So I have said before that if you put the rules in the audit mode, the Applocker will log all of its activity in the local Windows event viewer in every machine. So if you need to collect all of these logs locally, or and collect the local logs to a collection server, you can do this. So you can have a centralized location to monitor all of the application logs on all of the machines. Okay, these logs can be viewed together on the collection server. Allow several days for logs to be generated so they can reflect everyday use of the system. Okay, there is some events we need to monitor: 8003, 8004, 8006, 8007. Okay, so these are the events you need to log. Okay, and we will see every one of them. What does this log mean? So if you go there, for example, 8000 indicates that policy was not applied correctly to the computer. Okay, so that means that the rule was not applied or failed to apply for a certain reason. Okay, and 8001 means the Applocker policy was applied successfully to this computer. This indicates that Applocker was successfully applied to the computer. This is one. 8002, a file was allowed to run. Why? Because the Applocker rule allows it to run. Specify that the exe or DLL is allowed by the Applocker rule. 8003, warning, was allowed to run but would have been prevented from running if the Applocker policy was enforced. So this is in the audit mode. If you put your Applocker policy in the audit mode, so he's saying that I have allowed the program to run, but I will not but it should be blocked by the Applocker policy, but I will let it run because you are putting your Applocker policy in the audit mode. Applied when the audit only enforcement mode is enabled. Specifies that the exe or DLL would have been blocked if the enforce rules enforcement mode was enabled. So this is one thing. Then 8004, file was not allowed to run. The file is restricted by the administrator, applied only when the enforce rules enforcement mode is set either directly or indirectly through group policy inheritance. So 8004 means that it was not allowed. This means that the Applocker, it is in the enforcement mode, not in the audit mode. Okay, 8005, file was allowed to run, specified that the rule of Applocker allowed the file, so it's also in the enforcement mode. These are two enforcement mode. 8006, file was allowed to run but it would have been prevented anyway. So these are all events that should be monitored by the IT to know which Applocker rules was successfully implemented, which rules was not implemented successfully, if the rules blocked the correct programs and not the wrong programs. So you need to monitor it and see if they need to be modified or not. Here is saying some terms. For example, WinDire here means it is the Windows folder. Okay, and System32 here it means this. So this is our all program files here. This means it is the C program files. Okay, removable means it's removable. So this is some terms used in the PDF. And what does it mean? Windows directory or drive, the Applocker variable, Windows variable. Anyway, so there is a lot of things actually in these logs or Applocker logs that need to be monitored and take into consideration. So what we will do, we need to go, or we need to monitor these events or these event numbers in the event log. So to make it more easy to monitor these events, we will make a custom view log. We will make a custom view log and make it monitor these events in specific. So we don't need to search the whole event log. We will make a custom view that only contains these event numbers, so we can and identify them easily and see them easily from a whole bunch of event IDs. You will see that in a moment. Let me show you all. This is also this can be done automatically. I will show you all how we can do this. So what we will do, we need to go to the event log. This event log could be on the domain controller or could be on any machine in the domain. Okay, so or let's consider this to be our collectible server log. We will need to go and the same folder is something called event log Applocker custom view, and import it. What we have done by this view will contain, or this section will only contain the event IDs that we were discussing now. If we tell him okay, if we tell him okay, there is a window that will appear that will contain only these event numbers, so we don't need to search the whole Windows event log to see. So here we sample, we can see Applocker warning and errors. This section or this part will contain the event numbers that we're discussing now, so you don't need to search the whole Windows event log. Okay, so this is one thing, or this is one important thing to take into consideration. Let me see how much time we have. Okay, so I think we have passed a little bit of time. This is 56 minutes, so we will stop at the minute 33:50. Hope this video informative for you all, and thank you all for viewing. We will continue at part 3 to continue working with this video. Thank you so much.